Welcome back, and in this video we're going to be covering maps in Java, which is another one of the Java collection types. And as a specific example, we're going to be focusing on hash maps. So let's get straight into it. And the way we define it is simply by saying map, and as you can see, as soon as I write an M, the map option comes up and a K and a V appear. And so I'm going to hit enter here, and as you can see, the map statement is imported straight away. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in the parameters of my K and V, which actually stands for a key and a value. And so what this is my value is the actual value that I wanted to store in my map, whilst the key is a sort of reference to it, a sort of unique ID for the value that I'm storing, sort of how records and database may have a unique ID. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the types of my key and my value in here. And so my key is going to be an integer type. And so what I do is I actually use the integer wrapper class, similar to how I did in the last video when we were looking at sets. And this is done for all of my primitive types. And then for my value, I'm going to store strings. And so what I'm going to use this map for is specifically storing an employee register. So I'm just going to call it employee reg. And then I'm going to make that equal to a new hash map. And as you can see, it sort of autofills it for me already. And because I've put my integer and string here, I don't really have to put it in here again. And you can also see that Java auto imports the HashMap library for me as well. And so now we know how to make one, let's look at putting some stuff into our HashMap. And that's not actually too hard. What we simply do is we put the name of our HashMap, so employee reg, and then you would have noticed that in the last two videos, when we were looking at array lists and sets, we would have the add function, so it would just be .add. But here it's slightly different, and we just do .put. And then we put in our key, so I'm just going to keep it simple and put my first one as 1 for my key. And then my value, so my name of my employee, which I'm going to make Richard. And that's it. And so this key value pair has been put into our employee register. And so let's do another one. So we do employee reg.put, and then I'm going to put number 2 to keep it different and make my employee's name Chantel. And so I'm going to do 2 more, and I'm just going to cheat slightly and put in a 3 and a 4, and I'm going to make this name Raj and this name Wong. And so what we can do is, well, we can see all our key value pairs put into our map. And so the way we do that is simply by doing a system.out.println line statement, and we just put in the name of our map. So let's run this. And as we can see, we get 1 is Richard, 2 equals Chantel, 3 equals Raj, and 4 equals Wong. And so before, I also mentioned that the keys, so each of these here, have to be different. And so let's look at what happens if I try to put in, say, a key value pair with a key that's already been used. And what I'm going to do is put in 1 and Ethan. And so if I create another print statement and run this, we can compare the differences below. And we can actually see that 1 equals Richard has now changed to 1 equals Ethan. So what it does is it actually overrides the previous value. And we also have 2 other methods which were seen in the previous videos for array lists and sets. And that's to check the size of our map. And so that's simply done by employee reg.size. And another one which is to clear everything in our map, which is simply employee reg.clear. And so I'm going to comment this one out because I want to because I want to keep our values in. But if we run this, we should see that we have 4 values in our map, and so we get a 4 printed out. But now let's look at how we would remove key value pairs from our map. So this isn't too bad either, and all we do is simply employee reg.remove. And now, as you can see, we have 2 methods that come up, both with the name remove. And that's because we can choose to remove our key value pairs by their by just the key, or we can do it by the key and the value. So for example, if I just do it by the key for now, then I can simply just put an A1, and what that will do is it will remove Richard. So if I print this out again, then we can see that Richard is now removed, and we have 2 for Chantel, 3 for Raj, and 4 for Wong. And then we can also do it by stating the value as well. So I could do 2 and then Chantel. But obviously this is slightly longer, and if you just wanted to, and if you already had the key, then you could just use the key. But if I print this out again, then run it, we can see that Chantel gets removed from our list. And so it's actually not too hard to take stuff out of our map. And what we also need to be able to do is be able to get items or values from our map. And the way we do this is by referencing them by their key. So we would simply just do, well, first I'm going to put where we do in a print statement so we can see it. And then we do employee reg dot, and then get, and we simply get the object by its key. So if I wanted to get Raj, then or the value at 3, I would just type in a 3. And if I print that out, we can see that Raj comes out. But now, numbers don't really mean too much to a human being. I mean, I wouldn't go referencing my work colleagues by a 3 or a 4. I would use their names. And so what we can actually do is actually just get their names by themselves. And the way we do this is simply doing employee reg dot and then getting values. And what this will do is simply just return all of the values without the keys. So if I comment all of this out for now, whoops, and then I run it, then as you can see we get Richard, Chantel, Raj and Wong. Notice Richard and Chantel are back here because I've also commented out the remove methods, and so they aren't being removed from the list anymore. And similarly, I can just get the keys by themselves if I wanted to by doing something similar, which is employee reg dot keyset. And if I were to run this, then I would get the key set underneath. And notice that this actually comes back as a set. And so that's an overview of some of the methods that we can use with our maps and hash maps. There are more than the ones I've gone over here, but these are pretty much the main ones that you'll find yourself using. However, feel free to explore when you can. Now, one thing we haven't covered is how we can essentially use the constructor to make our lives easier. And one thing we could do is, say I wanted to make a clone, then I could do a new hash map, and I could also just set the capacity here, so the initial capacity, quite similar to how we did for sets in the last video. And you can also see here, I've just defined it by saying HashMap instead of map like I did here. And that's also something that's perfectly valid. And so then I could do clone dot put all, and what this would do is if I type in employee reg, then it would put in all the values from employee reg into clone. So I could print that out, system.out.println clone, and then if I was to run this, you can see I pretty much get a replica of what I had in employee reg. Alternatively, I could just put employee reg in here, and then I wouldn't actually need this line. And then so if I was to run it, I'll get the exact same thing. But you can use either depending on what your needs are. So that's an overview of maps and hash maps in Java. And what I'll do is I'll post all the code from this video in my Git repository, which will be linked in the description below. Other than that, feel free to check out my channel for more tutorials on Java, and I hope you've found the content useful, and if you have, please do like, share and subscribe.